Hello, I'm Lynn Shepherd, Director of the Masood Entrepreneurship Centre, and I'd like to welcome you all to Entrepreneurs at Manchester. Our aim is to inspire and encourage our students and graduates to become the next generation of entrepreneurs within existing businesses or by creating their own, changing the world and making a difference. And today we're fortunate to be joined by one of our graduates, Mustafa Khanwala, the CEO of Mishipay. Mustafa and his co-founder, Tanvi, entered their startup business into the digital category of our 2016 Venture Further competition. They were one of 4 finalists and were announced as winners and presented with a cheque for £10,000 at the awards presentation dinner in May 2016. Mishipay had developed an app which hoped to change the way we shop. Mishipay says, why should customers have to queue to purchase goods? And this was the question that drove Mustafa to create Mishipay. It's an app that enables in-store shoppers to pick up a product, scan the barcode, and pay with their phone, eliminating the need to queue. I'm really excited to have Mustafa on the screen today and chatting to me about his journey. There will be an opportunity for Mustafa to also answer your questions, so please do post them in the chat. But let me begin by welcoming Mustafa and asking, where did this all start? For a graduate of the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, please tell us more about where this all started.
Hi, Lynn. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. And, always thankful to University of Manchester and the time I've had there, but also the support we got through Venture Further. So I'm really happy to be here, share my story, share a little bit of what we've done and, what it took to get here. Hoping that we help someone learn something new, get inspired, whatever little they get out of it. Or else at the end of the day, just a little bit of entertainment. For me, I think it started with, so I've always wanted to start my own business. I've always wanted to, because my father and uncle did that in their 20s or later in their early 30s. And they did that 31 years ago with, a wholesale and distribution company for office supplies and packaging materials. Which didn't start out like that, started off as a small stationery shop. So that was sort of always there in the back of my mind as an inspiration. And when I was at the University of Manchester, I did my bachelor's in mechatronic engineering. That was 2011 to 2014. And before I passed out, I'd actually applied for another Venture Further award, or the one that is before Venture Further.
Venture Out, I think it was called.
Venture Out, exactly. I think I'd applied for Venture Out. With another idea at the time, and that didn't quite work out. I was not fully focused on it. So I was always thinking about different ideas, is what I'm trying to say. Like even when I was in University of Manchester, and Mishipay was sort of idea number 24 for me. It came to me when I was in Lidl in Tottenham Hale in North London, where I was staying in my student accommodation. And at the time, it just fit for me immediately compared to any of the other 23 ideas I'd had before that. I could see with Mishipay how I could start right then and there, right? Because to me, it made sense. Like, why are we waiting in a line? It's the 21st century. My phone should be more powerful than the POS. I should be able to scan the barcode, pay for an item, and leave. And there should be a way to verify whether I bought the item or not. In my mind, the first thing I thought of was RFID. Since then, we've evolved and now also handle retailers who don't have RFID. But I thought about RFID because I knew how university libraries across the UK were using RFID to protect the books. And in my mind, it was, very similar to protecting retail goods. Of course, I knew nothing about retail at that time, nothing about the kind of, cost complications or the way stores operate, etc. But I knew the basics of the technology I had to build for a prototype. And that's what I proceeded to do. Lucky for me, 2-3 months after that, my co-founder and CTO, who's also my best friend and was at the University of Manchester. She did computer systems engineering, obviously, because she's much smarter than me and did a better degree. But she came on to join me very soon after. She started to help me out just as a friend to begin with. And the last app she created, which she was in that company at the time, had more than 1 million active users. And she had created that from scratch. They were about to go through an acquisition, and she was thinking about her next move. So it all sort of fit into place very well. So there's a big piece of luck involved there, but it did still require me at the beginning to go after it by myself. Luckily, I had professors from University of Manchester and University College London, which is where I went for my master's degree, who were very encouraging and really helped with thinking about Mishipay and how I should look at it. And at that time there was other confusions going on, because while I was looking at this, I was still having some offers that had come to me, to go into fintech with the major banks from Goldman Sachs, Barclays, or also tech consulting with KPMG. And the other thing I had to do was sort of convince my Indian parents that it's okay to go after this risky thing of starting a new tech business rather than going after one of those sought after graduate jobs. But I managed to do it, and I was also lucky that UCL sponsored me with a graduate entrepreneur visa, and then we won our first external money into the company with the Venture Further Award, winning £10,000 in May 2016. So August 2015 was when I incorporated, and then May 2016. So it was, just a few months from starting out, and was extremely helpful at that time for us, right? It was a big deal. It allowed us to start to bring on some new team members, and at the end of 2016, raise £150,000 pre-seed round from some angel investors, some friends and family. And that really got us going to where we are today. With just to paint a little bit of context, we are now 65 people between our head office in London, our main technical office in Bangalore, and our two very important sales offices in the US and in Denmark. And we've raised a total of £9.5 million till date from people like American Express Ventures, Nauta Capital, and other very, very exciting and encouraging investors who over time helped us go live with some big retailers. We're live in all of the stores of Muji and Flying Tiger in London. We're live with 7-Eleven in Norway, and other such very big names. So we're very happy and grateful for the kickstart that University of Manchester was able to give us with Venture Further Award.
That's fantastic. I'm so pleased that really helped you in those early stages. I mean, often entrepreneurs say to me that money isn't the most important thing at the start. You need a little bit of money to move things along, but at the very beginning, it's more than that. It's really much more around the connections and the people. And I want to ask, you started Mishipay with a business partner, and you've talked about Cami. Would you recommend? Was that important to you? Was having somebody there with you at the beginning? Did it help you in order to make some of those risky moves that you probably had to make?
Yeah, 100%. I think having people in there who can help you, who can who can share the burden sometimes with you and work with you on this makes it much better, because you're working 20-hour days, 7 days a week. If you have someone to share that with, it's always going to be much better, right? A team is always better. I understand though that it's not always the good fortune that people have of getting in very good team members, because I did start Mishipay by myself. I had the idea by myself. For the first few months, so I had the idea in May 2015. It took me until August to get the first prototype, at which point I incorporated, and then Tanvi joined in some point in October. So until that time, I was looking for co-founders. I was not able to really gel well with the people who I was thinking could be good co-founders. And for me, the reason Tanvi was the original obvious choice was she was based in India and I was in the UK. So that was not very easy for us, but we still found a way to make it work, traveling very often between the countries. And that obviously required money and resources. And because of the relationship we had, it was able to continue. But yeah, I fully recognize how difficult it is to find the right co-founder. Because I will always encourage people to go with people they know, people they've known for years, preferably, who they understand the work ethic of. It does not have to be a great close friend. It's good if it is, but at least someone because it's a perilous journey, and you need to be able to trust. You need to be able to. I oftentimes say you need to be able to fight with the other person and have really heated arguments and debates, and then go out right like 15 minutes later and go out for dinner or drinks and be still completely okay with it, because it's about being openly ready to conflict with each other's decisions so that you come to the best understanding. Eventually, you also need to define who's taking the lead decision, right? There has to be a CEO in the business ready to make the final call, and that's also a tough position. But yeah, I think if I had to place importance, probably that would be number one in terms of starting something new. I would say the second thing is being able to chart your path. So I didn't know the whole way for how I was going to accomplish. I still don't know how we're going to get to, along from here to the final goal, which for us is being so ubiquitous that anyone who's shopping inside a store instinctively first thinks of scanning the item with Mishipay and trying to buy it with us. To get from where we are to that point, I still don't know every checkpoint along the way, but I at least know the next 3 steps, and I know what the end goal is, right? When starting out, I would say you need to know at least the next 2 steps, right? Where the first step is key, and then the step after that is where you're thinking about it. And the final goal at least should be clear to you that, yes, this is what I want to achieve. Of course, it can change over time, right? And that's the point of being adaptable in your business. But when you start off, you need to be able to know that, because if you can't start out the first 2 steps, it becomes very difficult. For me, with the other ideas, that was the problem, that I knew where I wanted to go, but I didn't know the first 2 steps. I didn't know how to start it. I would have had to meet, in some cases, some very smart scientists or people in biotech, and I didn't have that experience myself. In some of them, I would have needed a lot of money just to get started. And that I didn't have the luxury of doing either. So it's about being able to see those first 2 steps that you can do by yourself, or you can do with the person you're starting with if you're actually starting from day one with someone else. And then money is needed to fund that path that you've built, at least the next 2 steps. You need money for it. You do. I've mostly seen people who have money say that money is not that important. So, it is quite important, but it is only important in relation to your plan, right? If you just have money on its own, there's no easy marker, or it does not make your path much easier. It makes it easier, of course, it always does, but it's not any kind of guarantee to success for sure.
You mentioned at the beginning that you really didn't know anything about retail. I mean, you understood the technology and you knew what you want. You knew the problem. You saw a problem and you wanted to find a solution. What gave you the confidence to be able to go into retail in this way? Was it that you had networks that could help you, or a mentor? Where did you get that confidence to move into a sector that you had no experience in, Mustafa?
I would say a little bit of good-natured arrogance from time at university, just generally thinking I could do it. But you need that as an entrepreneur. You need to be able to think that you can disrupt big industries that have been around for a long time with very smart people. So you need that little bit of arrogance about what you're doing. And then, for me, it was about finding people through the networks I'd already built at university. I had helped out with the Techstars Barclays Accelerator in London through the University College London, which, was the computer science division was working with the Techstars Accelerator. So I had found some good entrepreneurs I could speak to, people like Leanne Kemp, who is also the founder and CEO of Everledger, which is a big blockchain-based company helping insurance brokers. She was a great friend and mentor in the early days, still a mentor of mine, and we meet once in a while. But she was very encouraging in trying to validate my idea, trying to validate what I was thinking about. I had Simon Hume again at university, who had built and sold his businesses. The latest of which was a cards business. So it was involved with retail. So he had an idea about retail. He was sort of asking me the very clear questions. And then there was a department at the university, I think, who had someone who was selling mannequins, and they were doing research using the lab of the university. And then I went and spoke to them also about retail. So I was able to find some people through that. And my first proper sales opportunity, I mean, they didn't pay us, but it was a sales opportunity in that sense, was through the university. College London, but also Cisco, who were participating in a pop-up shop in the Spitalfields market in London. It was called the Dandy Lab. So it was a proper retail shop selling menswear, clothing and accessories. And they had all kinds of technology put in there. So it was like a testing showroom, but it was really also transacting with real money and selling goods. So we got the chance to demo Mishipay in there, and then actually put it live there. So it became our first live pilot that we had with a retail shop. That was very good for us because it got us the first 100, 200 users who used Mishipay, said what they thought about it. And in our mind, it went from, being something that was a concept to being something where I had a model and I could say that, see, theoretically, this is possible, to being actually possible inside a real retail environment. And from there, we joined what was the Idea London incubator in London. And there we got a partnership with Cisco, who started to introduce us to a lot more retailers. And retail is a very big division that they sell into. So although that partnership is not valuable for us right now in terms of any kind of sales it brings, it was very good for us to learn about the market. So yeah, I would highly encourage going into an accelerator or incubator that's able to help out in that sense, which is sector specific. We also applied for a few others, which we failed to get into. But again, some of those where we were, although rejected, we met some judges, we met some people there who we continue to keep in touch with. And then through connection leading to the next connection, leading to the next one. Some of them were also just cold outreaches, like, just sending an email to Tesco or sending an email to someone and seeing if they reply. And some of those really hit. So we were happy with that too, that we got people connecting with us. And generally, I find that people are quite nice and happy to help. It's your job as an entrepreneur to really find the 2-3% of the good advice amongst all of the ones that you get thrown at you.
Yeah. So you almost have to select the advice that you're given. But I really appreciate you making such a point about connecting with people and being a connector and being a people person. So going out and talking to people and listening to them as well. So actually you almost are, in my mind, are almost a kind of a super connector in network thinking talk. And so just if I ask you, where does your drive and motivation come from? Because it's hard work to do that. I do not underestimate that. It's hard work to be constantly have that positive mindset, to be talking and listening to people and wanting to share things, but also getting information back. So where does your drive and motivation come from?
Yeah, I think, it comes from the original thing that got you to start it out. I got a very good, piece of advice when I had not yet started Mishipay, but there was a few people. So we had a class where it was called Entrepreneurial Finance, I think, and the professor herself, Ichaso, who is today a partner at Notion Capital, a big VC in London, was at the time a partner in another VC, and she was teaching the class as a lecturer part-time. And she got a few startups to come in and do presentations, do their pitch as if we would be the investors, which is very nice of her. And one of them I spoke to, who gave me a good advice. He said that, he asked me about some of the ideas I was thinking about. I was telling him whether I should or shouldn't go into it. And he was like, see, the fact that you're asking me probably means you shouldn't, because the truth is that when you have the idea that you really want to work on, then nobody can stop you from doing that, right? You almost compulsively, obsessively want to work on it because you feel like you found something, you feel like you found a problem you need to solve, and you need to go out there and do it.
Yeah.
That's where the original, spark of motivation comes up. And then you feed that flame constantly every time you're able to achieve the next thing, right? So you start off with the time you waited 20 minutes in Lidl for a Coke, like me. And then when you can build a prototype, you realize it's not just in your head, it's possible theoretically at least, right? Then you go out there and you get a validation where someone is willing to put it inside a real shop. Then you get a validation where 2 universities give you funds when you win their competition. So every little bit of further validation you gets you more motivated, right? And gets the flame bigger and bigger so that you can keep pushing. And that is really our biggest thing. The motivation at the beginning was strong, but it only got stronger day by day. And the same reverse can happen. So you're very right that you need to find a way to keep yourself motivated through the down times, right? Because it's a roller coaster, it's up and down, and you need to make sure that you're net up, right, in a time frame of, let's say, 1 year. So every year you're further along than where you were, even if it's 2 steps forward, 1 step backward constantly. But it's really when it's 1 step backward, you need to keep that motivation. And at that time, it's very helpful to look back and see what you've accomplished and take stock very pragmatically, saying like, is this what I wanted to do? If it's falling short of my expectation, is this what I want to continue doing? It's important to be pragmatic that way. But in the beginning years, especially probably in the first 2 years, you should not need to do any of that, because that motivation of starting something new and that idea is still so fresh with you, that you won't for 1 second feel in doubt about what you're doing in that first 2 years. After that, because it's been a couple of years, you will require yourself to have a certain level of success to say that the time you're spending is valid, is worth it, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the most finite resource we have. And if you're not spending the time on what really is going to help you push yourself forward and get you to where you want to be, you probably should not do it, right? So you start asking yourself those questions. But in the first 2 years, you don't really, because it's just the motivation of wanting to solve that problem. And every further step you get, you're just so excited about it. After that, you start looking for some more, I would say, traditional business successes, right? Revenue, or users, or funds raised, or people using your number of shops using your product, in our case, things like that. They start to become more and more important as time passes along.
Now, we could talk. I know, all evening, and we have a limited time. But we have a question from the audience, and I'm hoping that I think we've got a couple of questions have come in. So let me just ask you. Oliver has asked, to bootstrap or not to bootstrap? Start a company with a little capital or not?
There's no specific answer, but I would say if you can bootstrap, always bootstrap. That's
always
always. The truth is always, but sometimes you don't have a choice to bootstrap, because what you're trying to do requires capital, and you cannot do it without it. You don't have the capital. Of course, if you're very wealthy and you have it, you should probably bootstrap. The other thing is, like, you should also think about speed, about when you bootstrap versus when you don't. So my father bootstrapped his whole business all the time. It took him 31 years to get to the level of revenue that he's at today. For me, if I bootstrapped, I don't know if I would be able to build Mishipay to what it needs to be within 31 years. So that's oftentimes why a tech business does not bootstrap, because they need a certain speed of growth to get to the market, because of other competing forces and other kinds of market dynamics. So I would just encourage the person to think about that.
Okay, and another question as well is about the name of your company, about brand. So being in retail, you know how important brands and brand name is. So Mishipay is an unusual name. Where did it come from? Where did it come from, the name?
It was just a made-up name that I did at that time with my friend. We just mixed, nicknames, and we just made it up. And it was just, it was supposed to be a temporary name. We were supposed to find something better or more descriptive, but none of the descriptive domain names were available. So we just went with Mishipay because it was available as a domain and as a registered name in the company's house. So I just went with it, and it stuck after that.
And there's another question as well. And this is about, if you could go back now to your days at university, what would you do differently? Would you do anything differently?
Yes, 100%. I would definitely like to start earlier, make the mistakes that are necessary to make to learn and grow. You still need to have fun at university. I still am a firm believer of that. But you probably want to start 1 or 2 businesses at university. It's a great experience to have, because you learn so many things. You have immediate networks, because all your friends are around you and people that you can talk to. And it's a great place to do it. I started, the first business actually that I did was just as soon as I graduated from University of Manchester, around like 2014 October or so. I started a company called like Desi Home Food. which was like about South Asian students getting home cooked meals. And it was about convincing, making it into a subscription service eventually, which now is quite common. Like I use one myself called Chefly. And we wanted to do that, but particularly for South Asian students. But I had already moved to London to start my master's. I was trying to manage it from here. It was really tough. And we weren't that motivated to do that business, right? You come back to the motivation. It wasn't really a problem we absolutely needed to solve. But yeah, so we stopped it after that. But I oftentimes think if I'd started it earlier, while I was still a student, I could have done so much more with it, and it would have been so exciting.
So what you're saying is, don't have any fear of starting when you're young.
It's always better because you're able to fail a lot more with much less repercussions, right? You have such little responsibility on your shoulders of managing a family or children or expenses. And so go ahead and start. Like what's there to lose?
So one final question, because I know we could go on for evening, but I'm going to ask you one final question before I draw this to a close. What's the best piece of advice that you would offer to those that are listening to our conversation and looking to start their own business? What's the best piece of advice you could give them?
The best is just to do it, right? The Nike to copy from there, but just do it. Because the truth is that nothing I say or anyone says will teach you as much as going out there and trying it yourself, or doing it yourself. Of course, a lot of you will not start out with the right idea that is correct for you or correct for your focus. But that's the point. The first one might be the wrong one. The second one might be the wrong one. You will start to hit. Of course, the other stuff all comes. But if I have to give just one piece of advice, it would be to go out there and actually start it, do it. If I had to give more than one, I would say along with that, think about what I said, which is do you have the end goal and the first two steps, right? That's what I would first try to get. And lastly, don't be afraid to ask for help, right? So ask for help constantly everywhere. I oftentimes see too many people saying that, they want to keep their ideas secret or keep it in stealth mode, etc. That's right for probably 0.1% of the businesses out there, right? Where maybe you have a very special chemical formula that builds a medicine that cures cancer, and you can't talk about it until you've got the appropriate patent or licensing around it. But 99.9% of other businesses do not have that. So talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more, as you say it out loud, you will realize the problems or the loopholes, and you will begin to fix them.
Mustafa, I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you today. You've hinted at some really important aspects of being entrepreneurial, and I'm really grateful for you taking the time to talk to me today, for sharing your thoughts. It's incredibly inspiring. I wish you all the best in your future for the business and also for you personally.
Thank you so much. And big thanks to the University of Manchester. Very happy to always help wherever I can. And to everyone listening, thank you for listening. Feel free to reach out if you ever need it. Take care.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So it's been great to listen to Mustafa today. I hope you all took away from his chat with me some points that you can build into your own aspirations as you build your careers and move them forward. And hopefully some of you will have ideas and have the confidence to want to take them to the next stage. Please connect with us here at the Masood Entrepreneurship Centre and look out for other events that are planned throughout the year. We have a range of programs to encourage you to become more entrepreneurial. And if you already have a venture and you have an idea in mind, then please think about entering venture further. That's exactly what Mustafa did. He entered venture. Remember, he said he entered venture out and didn't do very well, but he entered venture further and he won. And that was really the starting point for Mishipay and the growth of this amazing business. So please like and follow us across all social media platforms, and we hope to see you again at our future events. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now. Thank you.